from Rob. Ready to roll. So we are at item B on our items for discussion, non-union compensation and pay equity review motion. The recommendation is there. Is someone willing to make that motion? Councillor Gregg. Oh.
Thanks, Warden. I will move the recommendation and report, and specifically with the addition of option 2 as presented in the closed session.
Thank you, sir. Seconder, Councillor Eccles. Jennifer, do you have anything to add further to your report here?
Through you, Mr. Warden, this is a report in front of council to ask council to adopt the work that was done by Gallagher to implement a new pay grid and banding system, and as well to provide direction to staff to bring forward a formal compensation policy that will outline how staff proceed throughout the grid, how often we will review our market, our internal and our pay equity, and how we will set cost of living allowances annually. This will provide a good basis for human resources staff and for management to proceed forward with a fulsome compensation program.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions, discussion? Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, Warden Milne. And one question I had that wasn't answered previously, and it was part of the report presented from Gallagher's. So it's presented as an attachment to this report. And if you could go to page 5, there's a chart inserted on that page, and it's a list of the comparables used. And I'd like to know where there's a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of where Gray's placed with some of the other comparables in terms of population to full-time employee to taxation off our FIRs. The question is, above full-time, it says number of EES. What does number of EES mean to help me provide context to that discrepancy?
Through you, Warden Milne, to Councillor Gregg. EES stands for employees, FT stands for full-time. And I would just like to point out that this is the 2021 FIR. When Jane and her team at Gallagher were doing the comparison and recommending comparators to us, the most fulsome data in the FIR database was based on 2021. We try to provide a robust comparator group. And if I'm missing anything, Jane is here to come up and speak to this as well. It will never be perfect. It will never be oranges to oranges to oranges and apples to apples to apples. You'll see we have Simcoe listed. Simcoe has quite a few more employees full-time than we do. However, we know that based on our geographic location, if you draw a circle around Grey County for an hour distance, Simcoe County is a group that recruits from both us and recruits from our lower tier. So we try to do the best. In the past, we've had 18 comparators and not been able to receive the data from them. So Jane had a really good look at our comparator group, brought it down to 10 and tried to provide us a robust grouping to compare against. And I can say that we have grown since 2021. We have more than 489, but this is the data that was used as the comparator group for this report.
Kim.
Sandra, would you or Mary Lou speak to the FIR number is different than if we went and did a head count? Can you, one of you, just speak to that so we're clear about what this number actually means?
Good morning. So the numbers reported on the FIR are actual bodies, not FTEs. So I just wanted to be clear. So when I provide that information to the finance department for them to upload, I tell them the number of bodies we have as full-time and the number of bodies as part-time. So we do have a large number of part-time employees that would significantly increase our FTEs if we were looking at that as a different number. With our having 3 long-term care homes and having paramedic services, we have a significant number of part-time staff, And not every municipal comparator has the same number of homes or size of homes. And some of them contract out paramedic services to either the private sector or to another municipality.
Thank you, Sam. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Madam Clerk, I'm gonna need some help here. Okay, Counselor Eccles has called for a recorded vote.
Counselor Mackey.
In favor?
Counselor Mackey is in favor. Counselor McKay. Counselor McKay is opposed. Counselor Carlton. Counselor Carlton is opposed. Counselor Pringle. Counselor Pringle is opposed. Counselor McQueen.
In favor?
Counselor McQueen is in favor. Counselor Nielsen is absent. Counselor Patterson. Counselor Patterson is opposed. Counselor Dickert. Counselor Dickert is opposed. Counselor Kentner. Counselor Kentner is in favor. Counselor Keaveney. In favor. Counselor Keaveney is in favor. Counselor Body is absent. Counselor Kepke. Counselor Kepke is in favor. Oh, geez. Counselor Gregg.
Favor.
Counselor Gregg is in favor. Warden Milne.
In favor.
Warden Milne is in favor. Counselor Dobreen. In favor. Counselor Dobreen is in favor. Counselor Matrosovs.
Madam Clerk, she just texted me. She lost connectivity. She's going to try to log back on.
Okay, thank you. We will just hold off on hers temporarily. Counselor Bordignon.
In favor.
Counselor Bordignon is in favor. Counselor Eccles.
In favor.
Counselor Eccles is in favor. Counselor Hutchinson.
In favor.
Counselor Hutchinson is in favor. And Rob, is Counselor Matrosovs rejoined the meeting? Okay, let me just give her another moment. It doesn't change. No.
She's not having luck, Madam Clerk, so you might want to.
Okay,
We'll
we'll
note
proceed.
Counselor Matrosovs as absent, so that motion carries 63 to 21.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you, Council. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, it is, I'm going to say 9 minutes after noon, so we must have a planning report here somewhere. Sorry, Scott. Emergency housing options is the next item on the agenda. You can see the report and the recommendation there received for information. Josh Gibson will be presenting that report. Would someone care to move receiving? Councillor Pringle, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Thank you very much. Josh, welcome.
Thank you very much, Warden Milne and members of Grady County Council. This report is going to be a follow-up to a report that was brought to the Community Services Committee a few months back. At that committee meeting, we presented some of the challenges that we're facing with the short-term shelter program, emergency shelter in particular for individuals in our community experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And this is a follow-up because at that time we said, we're going to go and we're going to look at other options that we can bring back and present to you that are going to make it easier for staff and better for community members to support people in these predicaments. So just a quick recap of the current system barriers. We're currently experiencing a lack of control with our short-term shelter program. And when I say control, it's around the fact that individuals own the businesses that we're renting from, and they get to choose who we're placing in those facilities. So staff might be working with someone pretty intensively and really wanting to give them another shot. But a situation that occurred, say, 3 years back has blacklisted them from that property. So that's one of the big things. It doesn't scale well due to the overall cost. And we've outlined the cost in this report, but simply put, increasing the total number of rooms dollar for dollar increases the cost. There's no efficiencies to be found by, say, getting another 10 spaces available and spreading that out. So it doesn't scale well. There's inconsistency to the capacity of the program. So events that are held locally, changes in weather and tourism patterns, all of those have an impact over the capacity available to our program on a day-to-day basis. And really, the demand continues to climb for this program. So we are almost exactly 1 year into running the short-term shelter program, and with the demand experienced in 2022-23 winter, as well as the call volume that we've experienced over the summer so far, we're expecting that the minimum demand for shelter spaces will be around 13,000 nights for 2024. And that, just to reference, is double what we provided for nights of shelter in the year of 2021. So exactly double. It was around 6,800 nights that year that we provided shelter through an alternate program. The current system, we utilize 4 motels, and combined with the cost of the room rentals, additional maintenance charges and fees and taxes, the average cost is $120 per night. So if we look at, it's later in the report within the chart on page 3, if we look at providing, we've tried to do an apples to apples comparison, and providing 14,000 nights of shelter, the cost at $120 a night would be $1.6 million. So in exploring these options, the big thing for our team has been to identify how we can find efficiencies so we can provide 14,000 nights of shelter and for it not to cost us $1.6 million. Opportunities at delivering the program directly. We reduce the barriers to entry that I talked about. So we no longer have that business owner control. We can reduce barriers to entry around pets, and we have a consistent capacity that we can rely on. We know where our rooms are. We know how many rooms we have. We can turn them over as quickly as we're able to turn them over, which sometimes doesn't happen with the current system. And yeah, it has the highest level. When we looked at all the other options, which we've briefly summarized within the report, this option around single room dwellings with their own self-contained washroom, it has the highest level of dignity, security, safety for staff and residents of the program as well, participants of the program, sorry. So getting down to the cost comparison, we've worked hard with finance around an operating expense estimate. And we project that running the facility, if we were to own the facility, would be under $67 a night as compared to the $120 that we're currently spending per night with the current model. That estimate is based on 9,855 nights, which is the projected amount that we could deliver through a couple of target properties that we've identified. And then there would be some overflow because, as I've mentioned, we're looking at demand being in the 13,000 night range. So we would have overflow. We have accounted for that within this. That's been outlined on that chart. So with the savings, we're still assuming a savings of just over $500,000 a year if we're able to operate at that 66.6 something cents a night. Versus the 120, it allows us to get that overflow and the total cost savings right around the $500,000 mark. I do want to just mention last year we brought a report around the cost of this as well and it being over budget. So we're working hard on trying to just be within the capacity of the program. We explored a few other options, modular congregate, temporary outdoor shelter dwellings. You are likely familiar with some projects that have happened also in Ontario, usually Southern Ontario, like the Waterloo region, where they have some temporary outdoor dwelling spaces. We did look into all of those. There was barriers around land, the setup, security of those sites, the weather, and the fact that they don't have a self-contained washroom. So now you're erecting another structure for washrooms and showers and the security costs around that. That is all I wanted to highlight from the report, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Josh, for that report. Any questions? Counselor DeBreen.
Thank you through you, Warden. Hi, Josh. I guess my only question is with the option to explore emergency housing dwelling that would be our own. Would the cost of that affect our ability to redevelop any of the other permanent housing that we, I mean, this is the short-term shelter program is unsustainable. And how do we get these people permanently housed in any of our other facilities? And I know that some redevelopment of some properties was planned. I'm just wondering how this would affect long-term the redevelopment of any of those properties.
Through you, Mr. Warden. It will affect it short term. Our immediate need right now are people that are unhoused and exposed to the elements and in great need. In saying that, we are looking still at future developments. 14th Street is a great example that's complete, and we're waiting for supports from the province. So even if we do develop, that support piece needs to be in place in order for people that will be using our short-term shelter to live in a more permanent housing setting. So we continue to report up to the province about the need for more mental health and addiction services in our community and the need for more outreach services from our partners in mental health. So I think there's a lot of things that need to come together until we can get some more permanent housing. By having somewhere, a place for someone to go, we can start to work with a person and figure out if there is housing that's available that would be appropriate. And having that opportunity would also help a lot of people for them to find permanent housing that are currently without it.
Any other questions? Counselor Greg.
Thanks, Warden Milne. And I do have some concerns. There is more information I think I would like to have come back through future reporting. I'm not eager to embark on the emergency motel option yet at this time. I think there's some more information that I would benefit from in terms of like cost for repairs, in terms of what we have expended as a corporation in the last few years for motels and repairs. I mean, it's public dollars being spent here, and it's a difficult situation that you and your team are in, Josh. But we do have a duty and a responsibility to the taxpayer too, to be transparent in what we're reporting. It notes barriers of animals, but a pet should be a last resort for, I mean, if we're talking about people being that close to homelessness and we're looking at purchasing motels to support that, then there could be warranted concerns from people in the public. That I would understand that. We have the 14th Street transitional housing about to open, hopefully. There would be staffing needs with a motel, but in the meantime, if we're going to need to staff a motel, could we not staff internally the 14th Street transitional housing? Because if we're talking about staffing needs or high needs people, and your report spoke to individuals who are on the blacklist, you're probably speaking to people who need to be in the transitional housing setting, of which we've just constructed one, and we're hoping to partner with the hospital here on their impacts in our community too. So those are a couple of my concerns. Another concern I have is, regardless of the community, a year ago, I was hearing from a lot of residents whose lives are interrupted by the shelter program at certain motels. So these are individuals who have people all of a sudden in their yards, or in some cases in their houses, and choosing to keep a baseball bat at the front porch. And this is not good. So I'm just saying, like, when we do zoning amendments, official plan amendments, we ask for environmental impact studies. Should we go to the neighborhoods and ask for like a neighborhood impact study in terms of how we respond to the impacts that we could create through our initiatives? Because they're good initiatives, but residents have fair concerns that are valid when government institutions purchase something that's already zoned institutional, for example, and then they can do what they want. And the residents feel like they get to contribute after the fact, and it's too late. So it's kind of meaningless, yet their concerns are very warranted. But when we do like zoning developments, we ask for an EIS, and it studies tadpoles in a pond for 3 weeks in the spring. So I just feel like, is there more we should be doing to engage and how we meet concerns by neighborhoods before venturing down this path?
So I'll just remind everyone, and Councillor Gregg in particular, that we're discussing the report in front of us, which doesn't ask or address any of those issues, which are real issues, but that's not what we're here to discuss right now. Now, I will note that we are going to go in camera for a related item, and perhaps then there will be an opportunity for some of those questions or answers. Councillor DeBreen.
Just point of clarification, the resolution is just received for information. This is concept.
That is correct. Absolutely. The report is here for information. Any further questions? Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Warden. I'm just looking for a little clarification on the existing motel model is $120 a night. That's fairly easy to understand. I'm a little confused as the operating cost per night on acquisition option is half of that, but we'll be manning and operating the facility. How we ended up at half the cost at $66. I'm just trying to figure out how we got to that number, 66, 61.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden, we were able to obtain some operating financial statements from a few of the motels in order to build those projections. And I worked closely with our financial analyst, Garrett, in the finance department to look at what the staffing costs would be related to security, related to all the utilities and the expenses. We've also built in operating costs for some of the damages that would come up, and we feel like we've over budgeted on that, but just out of safety and concern for this, because it is such a massive projection. And that's how we came to the $66. So that includes $350,000 towards security or staffing to operate the facility, $100,000 in maintenance charges. And I wish I had printed it because I could have taken you through all the other fine details of that. But we have broken down the operating expenses for the year and run it through the finance department as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor DeBreen.
Through you, and just to follow up to Councillor Pringle's question, is the difference in that $120 a night is a for-profit? They're in it to, do business, and we would be operating in a not-for-profit status.
Josh, you want to respond?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden. Part of it is that it is the for-profit piece. Also, we haven't had a lot of success in lowering the rental amount that we've secured because we require the services, and so we demand it, and they control the costs.
Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Good morning. And if you hear music in the background, I'm sitting in the boardroom at Grey Roots. So the music is a piano playing. So it's lovely to be at, Grey Ridge, Grey Gables. Josh, thanks very much for the report. One question is around revenue. Is there any opportunity, someone that is on ODSP or on Canada Pension, if they were in one of our geared income housing, they'd be paying approximately $450 per month. Is there an opportunity for those same individuals to be making a contribution towards these rooms? That's my first question, Mr. Warden.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden, I should have addressed that as part of the operating budget, but yes, there is revenue to be obtained through these rooms. Currently, with our existing model, we do obtain some revenue as well. On a monthly basis, we provide a bill to both social assistance agencies, Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program. There is some requirements that allow us to get a piece of their shelter funds as long as they hadn't already been issued to the participant. And we are able to recover a bit of costs related to that. So we have budgeted for some income on the property.
Thank you. If I could, Mr. Warden, Josh, in your research on the best way to move forward for Grey County, what are some of the other, like every municipality is facing this issue, what are some of the other unique ideas that you've run across that might be worthy of consideration?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden, probably the number one that people were recommending to us that they really wanted to see was sort of the homelessness villages, where people, similar to what Waterloo did with their Herb Street outdoor temporary shelter facility. So we did contact and reach out to Waterloo Region around those. We talked with our other service manager partners at the tables that we're a part of to find out how things are working in their communities to identify the barriers. The big reason that we were looking to go with this option is that the operating costs can be lower, because when you look at a congregate shelter, which we explored, facilities that would be congregate in nature with cots in an open room. We also spoke with a developer who had moved a modular congregate building that was used in the oil sands for employee housing. They moved that to Simcoe County. They're operating it as a congregate shelter. The cost to operate that with the number of individuals you'd have in there would be at least 3 to 4 staff all the time, 24/7. Whereas with a self-contained unit such as this, the operating costs can come down because you could operate with a security guard overnight, as long as you provide them with a secured access to an office space that was separated from the rest of the building. And these are things that we heard from other service managers that have gone down similar paths of trying to identify the best way forward. The outdoor spaces as well, they pose a problem in the winter when you get those 3-foot snowstorms and people need to get to washroom facilities, and we have to look at maintaining those buildings. So if we're putting in a temporary structure that's 10 by 10 that doesn't have a washroom in it, if people can't get out, then we run into issues and things like that from a safety perspective and health and safety.
That answers your question, Councillor Mackey?
Yes, it does, Mr. Warden. I do have one more if
Sure,
I'm
go
able.
ahead. Yep.
Thanks. Josh, as was mentioned in the report, the private sector, there are individuals that they won't allow in. Can you just speak to the county, what their requirements to allow someone in, so that we may not see too much damage being done? Like, I know it's a difficult thing, but there are individuals that maybe are beyond our capacity. Can you just speak to that a little bit, please?
Absolutely, I can speak to that. There are, and we try and speak to this in all of our reports, but there are individuals that are difficult to support that we try and support with community agencies by doing wraparound. I will say that in order to access the program, the number one thing that we put forward above all else is staff safety. So if there is anything that could risk staff safety, somebody wouldn't be able to access the program. The other thing that we would do, and this is more in relation to the fact that the motels do not allow some individuals, and then it's 6 months down the road, they may be working with Grey County's SOS program and be in a different state of their life, a different point of their recovery. And so that's somebody that we would want to get in our motel program and work with. Those are the individuals that we're targeting when we speak to the fact that they wouldn't be allowed in the current model. We want to be able to support them as best we can in a newer model where SOS has been involved. We're working with community partners. So we want to give people a second chance. It's not to say that there will not be service restrictions. A service restriction policy exists within the program and puts staff safety and other participant safety above all else.
Thank you, Josh. Kim, you had something to add?
Just a question, Anne Marie or Josh, would either of you speak to you talked about 13,000 nights of shelter, for example. On what percentage of those nights did we actually see someone commit an act of some kind of serious vandalism?
So in the calendar year that we've been running the program, September to September, I've had 3 instances where we had to have an outside company come in and do a cleanup or a significant repair that fell outside of what the motel could take care of.
Okay, Councillor DeBreen.
Just one quick question, because you were looking at other options and the Waterloo modeling. When we were at AMO, we learned about Kingston and London introducing a hub program, and there may be 4 hubs that are specific to specific needs. Was any of that explored? Because I haven't had an opportunity to look into that further, but I wondered if that's a model that we might explore down the road. If I may clarify, perhaps those hubs are more of that congregate setting, which you've included. I'm not familiar with them, that's all.
So those hubs are great starting up in London. Specifically, they're looking at 3 to 5. The average cost to operate one of those has recently been in the news at $2.7 million per hub site. Hamilton is doing something similar with washroom and shower facilities in a number of sites around the city, and the security costing alone on those is $1 million.
Okay, any further questions on the report? Motion is to receive. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes those items. We have one item from the consent agenda. And then we'll be having a closed session after that. The motion and the recommendation is there. Councillor DeBreen, you wish to move that? Seconder? Councillor Keaveney, thank you. Discussion, Councillor DeBreen. Or wait, is somebody, wait, Stephanie Lacey Avon, is she or Scott, are you going to speak to that report?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I've just sent Stephanie a message to see if she can come. I'll just run and check if she's there, but she'll be speaking to this one as long as she's still around. Just pardon my interruption here.
No, not at all. It is almost lunchtime. Oh, there she is. Welcome, Stephanie. Sorry to call you at the last minute like that, but we've been all over the place with the meeting agenda today. So thank you for being available. And if you would like to speak to the report, that would be wonderful.
There we go. We're good. Thank you, Mr. Warden. So here this morning or this afternoon, I'm just hoping to give you guys just a brief update of kind of the status of this file. We're just at the merit report stage. So it's a local official plan amendment. If you don't mind just going to the next slide, please. So currently, this application is for an on-farm diversified use on an undersized agricultural lot, being 10 hectares in size. So this aerial image shows a great picture of kind of where the shop will be intended to go. So it's a proposed shop, power room, skid steer room, and outdoor storage area and gravel yard. So in total, this proposal would, or this proposal. And so just in terms of process, we're at the merit report stage, which means we've received an application from this proponent. As part of the planning process, we simply have to review these applications for completeness, which means have they submitted the application as required by the county and local municipalities, as well as the accompanying technical reports and studies and paid their fees. If that meets the completeness requirements as outlined by the Planning Act, then we as planning staff have to proceed with processing this application. So just for clarification, at this point as well, staff have not completed a planning assessment or analysis of this proposal. When proposals are received, we have to go through the process, and at this point we are receiving or at the stage of receiving comments, and we haven't, the public meeting has been set and we haven't, that hasn't taken place yet as well. So yeah, just wanted to share that no decision has been made. We also wanted to acknowledge that just because we have received this application doesn't mean that county staff are in support or not in support of it. We have to judge all applications just based on context and individual merit. So hopefully that just clarifies where we're at this stage for this application. Happy to answer any questions. And
Councillor DeBreen, did you have a question?
Thank you, Warden. And through you, thank you, Stephanie and Scott, for responding to my questions. And I guess where I was coming from was earlier this term, we had OPA 11 come forward in which it was proposed that smaller lots would be considered for on-farm diversified use. And through discussion of that, we removed it from OPA 11. So through the concerns or the consideration that it was working well as it was, I am concerned that this, through its process, whether it's supported or not in the grand scheme of things, has potential for opening the door for a flood of smaller properties for on-farm shops and the implications for that in our communities, our rural roads, the infrastructure that it affects. So I appreciate the opportunity to have asked those questions. I guess I find it a concern that we are required to go through us and put staff through that and consider it. We're required to do it, as opposed to voting that we don't find there being merit now, or I'm not saying that that's the case, just saying it's not in our purview today to say we're not going forward. And so thank you for the education. I do still have a concern that we removed it from OPA 11 and now we are going to be one-offed each time this comes forward. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. Scott Mackey, sorry, Scott, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I know you're used to me being just to your left, so I apologize for that. A question just around on-farm diversified. My understanding is on-farm diversified is to be secondary to the farming operation. I guess I question a lot of this size, how it has a viable farm operation and how this can be secondary to it. So that's the first part of the question. And, you know, I share the concerns that Councillor DeBreen shares. I feel that there's some industrialization happening within our countryside right now, that some of these industries would be better suited in commercial zoned or industrial zone properties, and it's kind of a way to skirt around. And it's driving up, I'm hearing from the farming community, these sorts of activities are driving up the value of farmland to the point that the farm operators are having difficulty. Just a couple of my comments, and I guess the question is, what is secondary to the what is considered secondary to the farm operation? Thanks.
I'm going to allow the question to proceed, but we're not here to debate the merits of on-farm diversified uses. It's simply to say that this report has come forward and to receive and to allow it to go to public meeting. But go ahead, Stephanie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, just briefly, in terms of the provincial policy statement and provincial guidance, and the documents have been released, sorry, from the province that provide some direction around on-farm diversified uses. Research has been done to discuss and kind of outline which type of proposals could conform and be part of those on-farm diversified use types. And yeah, through that process, the policies that we are guided by the province have they don't have strict parameters around lot size, and through that there is acknowledgement that farm lots that could be 10 hectares in size, 15 hectares in size, 20 hectares in size, may need to diversify their farm operation to make it financially viable. So yeah, just generally speaking, the provincial policy statement as outlined right now keeps the door fairly open in terms of lot size that could accommodate on-farm diversified uses.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Okay, we have one final closed session to deal with. That the committee of the whole now does now go into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss. Number one, labor relations or employee negotiations, specifically Ontario Nurses Association collective bargaining. And two, a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, specifically emergency housing option. Someone care to move that, please? Councillor Kepke, seconded by